Hi, I'm Tyler, and this is the Fox Valley Film Critics by the Fire. In this episode of the show, we're going to be discussing the next in the lineup of the AFI's Top 100 American Films, Singing in the Rain, as well as the newest Netflix movie, Hold the Dark. Stay tuned. Welcome to the show, brought to you by Groupthink Productions and FVTV. Joining us once again is Nicole, who's been on before.
Hi.
Good to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
You're busy working at NBC? Or?
Yeah, NBC, Good Times, Chicago shows.
Oh, man. What's your position there? Or?
I work in transportation.
The fun part.
Yeah, I work with all the Teamsters, with the foul miles, and,
Oof.
Yeah, I love it.
I work
the best.
I work AV, and I've seen the Teamsters up close.
Yeah, they're amazing. Love my guys.
Well, I mean, when I did Teamsters, I was at McCormick.
Yeah, well, they work here too. But see, the nice thing about working with them is that you could literally kill somebody and get away with it because you've got like 200 guys that'll help me hide a body.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I've heard stories.
It's good. Not literally.
Anyway, so I'll start out this with a little bit of a personal admission in terms of the show. I made a clerical error the first month I started doing Fox Valley Film Critics.
Okay.
I mixed up Singing in the Rain and Sound of Music in my brain. So Sound of Music is actually number 40, but we record that as episode 4. So this is just kind of us making up for the fact
Singing
that
in the Rain is actually number 4 on the list?
yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was just my mistake, and I think I admitted it in the description of the video, and obviously I kind of want to own up to it more officially because someone's gonna be like, this list is very out of order. I'm like, yeah, it's very. We've been out of order for like months.
It
so
happens.
we recorded it we recorded It's a Wonderful Life like 3 out of order last year just because we wanted it to pair as the Christmas episode. So
yeah, well, like it happens.
well, yeah, I mean. What can you do? I mean, I can't go back in time and change it back to Singing in the Rain. And AJ really wanted to do that one because he had the laser disc of Sound of Music. So
see, you just did it again, almost.
Dang it! I can't remember. I keep mixing up my '60s musicals.
Yeah, it happens. Is
So
there more? I don't even know if there's more. 60s
musicals? Musicals are like
I don't know. I don't watch a lot of musicals.
musicals are like the big thing in the '50s. That was like one of the big spectacle
I know
films.
Hairspray. So. That was back then, right? Yeah.
I think that's a newer.
Well, it was remade, but it's the original was.
It's set in the '60s, so I would think it was at least '70s.
Maybe. I don't know, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yes, exactly. So, have you seen Singing in the Rain prior to this, or?
So the first time I saw it, obviously I went to film school, so like they like ride you on watching certain movies. That was one of them. But also, I think the first time I saw it, first time I saw it was in high school. And
okay.
I took a film class in high school, and they made me watch it. And I didn't remember when you said watch this. I was like, I know I've seen it, but I have no idea what it's about. So I rewatched it. It was interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating seeing it now. I mean, I distinctly remember seeing it in 4th grade. So in one of my music classes, where it was probably one of those days where it's just like the teacher was out Sunday night,
She doesn't
so
feel like participating today.
So we're gonna put on a movie for 2 hours and hope you enjoy.
Yeah, well, it works.
Yeah, and I definitely see why this is at the top of the AFI list, because there's one thing like pretentious movie buffs love. It's movies about movies. And
yes.
this isn't just about movies, it's about movies becoming other movies.
It's like, see, I think that's the only aspect of it that I actually liked. And maybe it's because I'm a filmmaker, I don't know. But like, I'm not a huge musical fan. It's not, to me, I'm more of a realistic reality, like, I like things like that. You know, if it really happen, that's kind of my movie.
Not a surrealist.
Yeah, I'm not like, oh, we're just going to be walking down the street and then randomly burst into song. Like, that's not my thing. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this, whatever. And my coworker and my boss were like, oh, it's a fantastic film, it's classic. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I hear, you hear about it, whatever. And like I said, I don't remember it from high school at all. I just know I watched it. But I was like, oh, okay, I can get through this. Like, this is about my industry, and it's about like becoming, it's like about a part of history in the industry, which I thought was really cool.
Let's go into that a little, because it's about the transition of silent to sound films.
Yes, and I remember, obviously went to school, so like I remembered this being a huge part. You talk about it, and it's interesting because it affected the actors back then, because originally they're not talking, they're just kind of doing whatever. Now all of a sudden they have to have a voice, which is a huge part of this film. This girl's got to have her voice, and it's terrible. Every time she talks, I cringe. Like, it hurts my ears, it hurts my soul, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, if that were now, like, she would not be an actress. Like, that's just, and it's kind of shady the way
Brutal.
that, the other girl, I'm not really good with, like, names because I've only seen it the one time, but it's kind of shady how this other girl's, like, playing her voice, and, and the reveal in the end is kind of nice because you're like, yay for this one girl, the voice.
I know that happened.
Yay, she finally gets her redemption, like she deserves, she was a good singer. She's probably a good actor. Like, she was pretty enough that she could have been on screen, like, way better than the other annoying person. But it's interesting to me how, because you don't really think about it, you see a movie about it, but you don't really think about how that actually really happened, and how that actually affected real people at one point. Like, they transitioned over, and I can only imagine, like, all these people who had really terrible voices probably lost out, like, a whole career.
I do know for a fact that there were singers that Hollywood did have, that their sole role was just to perform the singing role of actors and actresses. So they would be. I don't remember the movies specifically. I wish I did, because I've heard a couple of good examples of it. But they had just 2 or 3 singers that they just kept on stock, and they'd be like, okay, so they're going to perform the role, and then you'll sing the role. And obviously, with film, most of the time you don't use the set audio, unless you're Les Mis.
Yeah.
But that gets you mixed results. So, because obviously you want the nice, clean studio recording. So it's not that different necessarily, but it does come off really sketchy when they just use a different actress's voice for the singing roles. And you're right about the transitionary period, because there were so many silent actors that did not make it past 1935.
Yeah. And it's weird, like, you watch a movie and you don't think about it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this actually really happened.
It's not even just the singers, too, because there's, like, Keaton and Chaplin did okay, because he did The Great Dictator afterward, which had sound. But, like, a lot of those guys, even, like, guys and girls and anyone, just did not get past that barrier.
Yeah, it was a huge thing. Made a huge impact on the industry, that's for sure.
For better and worse. Like, even, like, I forget the name of it. There was a good lesson, I was listening to one of those, like, college courses at the library things, like those CD boxes.
Oh, yeah.
They had one on film at my library, and I listened to it, and one of the huge problems that they immediately had was now, like, film had immediately became a locked down medium. So all the film before they didn't have to use microphones, they were able to just put the camera anywhere. They could just do anything they wanted. Like, my professor in college showed us The Passion of Joan of Arc, and they just, like, strapped the camera to just, like, a stick and just threw it around everywhere, and you could do whatever you want because there's no sound involved. But suddenly now you have sound. It's like, okay, camera has to stay planted, audio guy has to stand behind it with a giant stick.
Oh my gosh, the boom.
Yeah, and then if you've seen if you've seen, like, Hail Caesar, you see the boom in those things.
Oh yeah.
I think it was on a tractor. That you could not, like, go that far with it, and it had to be plugged directly into the camera if it wanted to keep the sync.
Well, they do that in the movie too. They show that in those scenes, which I do remember them using clips when we were learning sound in college. They would show us that clip where they're, like, putting the mic in the plants. And then they're like, no, talk into the plant. We can't hear you. It's like, I can't even imagine being a filmmaker back then, because it's hard enough. Your boom people get in the way. Like, it's unfortunate, but it's true. Like, especially if the lighting's hitting a certain way, you really have to all work together as a crew. And it's hysterical because, like, you're watching the film and, you know, they hide the mic and the plant and you're like, oh, that was really a thing back then. Like, and their mics weren't little. Like, we have lavs now and we've got, like, you have sound on top of sound, you know, like we're wearing them right now. But, yeah, I mean, back then they were huge. So trying to hide those and then it's got to, like, pick it up, it's crazy.
I will say as a final point on this, I was not familiar with the soundtrack going in. There are so many songs I recognize just listening to it. I was like, oh, I've heard that song. Oh, I've heard that song. Oh, I've heard that song. Oh, they all come from here. That's all the time we have for this segment. Join us for the next segment where we'll be discussing Hold the Dark. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome back. Time to talk about Hold the Dark. So, what do you know about this?
Okay, so I tried to watch this movie the first time. I fell asleep. I never fall
Me
asleep
too.
during movies. Okay, so I don't feel bad. I think part of it has to do with, like you were saying earlier, was that Netflix, you kind of like, you're in your house, you're comfortable. Like, I'm the type of person, I'll put on a movie, I get stuck on my phone. Then I'm like, oh shoot, I have to rewind because I'm lost. The other part of it was it's just so slow. It's like slow, there's so many plots going on, I feel like. Useless plots at that. It was just confusing and whatever. I rewatched it today with my coworker while we were working, and still we Googled it just as after we watched it, and then we Googled it to see. She was just reading something, and she was like, the hashtags were hysterical because they were dead on. It was like gory and kind of boring and kind of slow and confusing, and I was like, yeah, it kind of fits all of that, but like visually it was very appealing.
Yeah.
But other than that, I was like, oh man, what is going on? Like, it was a little bit of a hot mess.
Okay, I don't want to beat up on this too hard because I really like the filmmaker. Like, do you know Jeremy Saulnier at all?
No.
I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I think he's French-Canadian, so his last name is an enormous amount of consonants in a row, but he directed a movie called Blue Ruin a couple of years ago.
Okay.
That it was one of those movies that was made on like a minuscule five-digit budget, and it looks better than like 90% of films that came out. It is amazing looking. I think they even shot on like a DSLR, and it looks like a movie that was shot on like a Red.
Oh, visually, I thought this film was great.
I mean, yeah, and Blue Ruin is just a spectacular movie. It's like a 90-minute thriller, really tight-knit, great script. And then he turned around, not quickly. His next film was Green Room, which I don't know if you've heard that, but that really hit hard a couple of years ago because it was the Anton Yelchin movie about the guys who get caught in like the back room of a neo-Nazi warehouse.
I'm surprised I haven't actually heard of that because I like him.
Yeah, it was like the big indie movie of 2016, I think, and that and like Swiss Army Man, but it was a really good like violent thriller. So I was like, okay, how do we get out of it? And what I like about all these films is that they're very great visually. They're very tight-knit thrillers, and they really know how to like ratchet tension and use gore effectively.
Oh yeah, gore. I had it.
And Hold the Dark is so weird, not in a good way.
Yeah.
I felt so bad because I like this guy and I'm clearly rooting for him, and this is clearly his opportunity to work with a big distributor with Netflix and get like finally a good budget. Apparently it's based on a book, so he's like working off of other people's material, and it was written by his friend Macon Blair, who is an actor who's been in a bunch of his movies. I feel so bad because it's one of those things like you root for the filmmaker, and occasionally they just hit a rough patch.
He can redeem himself. I feel like.
Oh no, I'm sure I'll do great. I'm sure he'll do great when he writes his own script again.
Yeah,
so.
If you're used to writing your own script and you take on somebody else's, that's a whole different aspect. Then add in the fact that now your budget is bigger, so you can have more. There was like so much filler in this, like unneeded scenes. And the shootout scene, it was just so long. And you're like, okay, I get it. Like, and it was just weird. It was like there was just so many different plot lines going on in my head. I'm like, there's the dude who kills the wolves, and his daughter who he keeps mentioning, and it kind of comes around in the end, but you're like, was it really needed? Probably not. And then like the lady, oh my god, the mom, she's just weird. Like, who talks like that? She like creepy whispers like she's dead or something. It's crazy. And from like the very beginning, that something is off about this whole film, because the way like she's just sitting there, it's like your kid just disappeared.
She hires a wolf expert.
Yeah, like you write this creepy like letter to him that's being narrated as you're realizing like her son is missing. Don't know exactly what happened, but like I kind of got this feeling, I'm like, she's guilty of something. And then there's like the whole other plot of like the dad in war, which I'm like, we could have just done without all of that. I feel like none of that was really needed. We could have, we knew he was off to war, but I don't know if I really needed to see any of it.
It shows the budget that they could shoot her in a completely different part of the
like,
globe.
oh, look, let's just add this in here. Why? Because, it shows that he's kind of ruthless. Like, he doesn't have any shame to, like, kill people, but I don't know if we needed it to tell the story.
That might be slightly slanderous to soldiers, but...
Yeah. And then there was, like, the plot of, like, the wolves, which, again, is, like, didn't really sell it for me. And then the mask, which is, like, you become this crazy killer when you have it on. But, like, was it really? I don't know. It was very confusing, all just to have, like, the mom actually be the murderer, and then they get back together, and it's like, what is going on? It's just a hot mess.
I can kind of see the mind working behind it. Like, this is one of those movies where it's like, you can kind of think the writer is like, okay, so each one of these things is like a symbol. And so you can tell what the meaning of the movie is by the way the symbols interact with one another. And he's like, he represents the wolf, and the wolf represents, and like, you could kind of see how someone would, with that kind of mindset, would write something like this. But there's no dramatic core to the film.
No.
Like, did you see Wind River last year?
No, I didn't.
It's kind of a similar film. It's by Taylor Sheridan, who did Sicario and Hell or High Water, which are both really cool thrillers.
Hell or High Water, I saw.
Yeah, he's a cool writer. I like him a lot. But what I like about that movie is that there's a central dramatic theme to it, and there's a goal. Like, there's always like a sense of drama involved in what's happening in that film. You know why these characters are here. You know what they're struggling with. You know what the point is. And with Hold the Dark, like, and they're both very visually similar. They're both about people who live in like rural reservations in like dead of winter. So they're both very similar visually. But with Hold the Dark, there's just nothing at the center of it that's just holding it all together and making you want to keep fighting through it.
Yeah, it's like and not only that, but I feel like it changes. Your main character changes. Like, at first it's the mom, then it's the other guy, then it's the dad, and then it's like it just keeps going back and forth, and there's nothing kind of driving any one story. For me, there wasn't anything driving any of these characters' stories to make it appealing enough to be like, okay, I'm like rooting for you, or okay, I hate you, or like it was just kind of like, oh, we're going along and I don't really know what's happening.
Yeah, it's pretty lifeless.
It was enough for me to fall asleep. I don't fall asleep during films, so.
I'll admit I've been falling asleep during films a lot lately, and it has to do with the fact that I work like 10 hours a day every day. So I get home and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put on a movie.
That's just why I don't watch movies, and I think that might be like why I fell asleep the first time, because it was just such a long day at work, and then trying to watch it at night, but. Even today, like, I kept having to pause it at work, and I'm like, okay, like, me and my coworker were talking about it, and I was like, okay, this is what's going on, and she's like, so this person and this, like, we're trying to piece it together, and then, like, I feel like the ending wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't what I was expecting, it wasn't what I was, like, you get through all of it, and you're like, really, like, I don't know, it just kind of feels not big enough. Not like there's nothing exciting about it. It's just like, oh, okay.
Again, I think it's just the writer. He's thinking thematically. It's just like, oh, it's going to end this way. So all the symbols are going to come together, and then bad guys are going to get away, and then good guy is going to do his thing and reunite with his daughter. And
Yeah, I don't know. But I do know, like, the gore, though, man, they were spot on. Like,
That's Jeremy Saulnier's specialty.
yeah, that was intense.
He's
Some
one
of them.
he's one of these directors that's like big on the indie scene where they just kind of they love gore, like Gareth Evans, or I think it's Z. Craig Zahler, who did Brawl in Cell Block 99, which is really, really gory, and Bone Tomahawk, which traumatized me. But it's like that was only a few years ago too. It was just like, it's a Western movie. Oh no, no, no. But anyone who's seen that knows what I'm talking about. But
I haven't seen it, but
Don't.
I kind of want to.
oh, it thinks it's going. You think it's going in one direction, and it has the most gory death scene in cinematic history at the end of it.
Maybe
So.
I'll just look up the death scene. I'll just watch it.
Oh man, it's rough. But yeah, with Hold the Dark, I'm sad.
I'm sorry though. Like
No, I'm not mad at you, but
I feel like I would have to see his other stuff in order to get it. But I think like the shots though and the locations are fantastic. I mean, especially with like, I feel like Alaska's a good place to choose to do like horror movies.
that would be interesting. Like I think I would love to see like a different kind of horror movie just set in Alaska.
There is one.
I'm sure. Other than this,
30 Days of Night.
that's all the time we have for this segment of the show. Join us for the final segment where we'll be getting this week's movie recommendation. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. Time for the final segment. We're going to hand things over to Nicole now.
Yay. So, recommendation. So the only thing I've watched lately, and the only reason I've watched it is because me and my coworker constantly work. I work like 8 to 12-hour days.
Oof.
So we watch things like while we work, and we try to watch them together. And we work in TV, so we watch TV. And we've been binge watching American Horror Story Cult, which I feel like it kind of fits in with like the last thing that we just talked about. It's very dark, it's very twisted, it's very gory.
Just like Singing in the Rain.
Yes, just like Singing in the Rain. No, but it's like Hold the Dark. Like it's the gore. Oh my gosh, this show. Honestly, if you haven't seen it, you should. And I'm not a huge fan of American Horror Story. I like the very first season. The other seasons I could care less about. But for some reason, this one, I was like, yeah, let's watch it. It's kind of more realistic. It is so crazy. It is like, I mean, there's so many plot twists. The people are so, like, the characters are so intense. And it has to do based on the election between Trump and Clinton. And then there's, like, killer clowns, which is actually not clowns because they're part of the cult. And, there's things brought up from like mass murders of like Jonestown and Charles Manson, and they do like crazy reenactments, and it's intense.
Wow.
I just finished it today, and like I'm not gonna lie, like I was very shocked. It's crazy.
That's rough.
Lots of just, I mean, ruthless, like, murder, just super dark. I highly recommend it. I don't know, have you ever seen any of
I have not.
No, you should definitely watch that one.
Do you ever watch any of like the big Chicago, like you know how like, everyone in Chicago that works in television, they always talk about the same 5 films. It's like Empire, Chicago something or other, or Exorcist. Have you ever like? Do you watch any of the? You don't
TV
watch
shows?
Yeah.
I don't. I work on 3 of them. I don't watch any of them. No, I don't. I feel like you spend so much time there. The last thing I want to do is like go home and actually like have to. I'll watch my shows that I work on because I get paid. Like if the ratings are up, I have a job next season. So like I'll watch. I don't actually watch them, but I'll play them. Like
Sure.
while they're on, or I'll record them and then play them so I can get the ratings. But no, I have no idea what's going on. Like if you were to ask me, I get people who ask me on my shows like what characters are, oh my God, what the characters are doing this week. And I'm like, I don't even know who those characters are. Like I work with them. I don't know who they are though.
I remember when I worked briefly at a recording studio, I heard some drama about one of the major actors leaving the show, and I was just like, man, I'm sure if I leaked that, that'd be cool. But
Yeah.
I didn't because I didn't care. So
No. I could
Is this
get
like-
fired for that stuff. But yeah, I can't afford to lose my job. Plus, I kind of like it. But
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I hear all kinds of stuff about Empire though, and they're
Oh,
a
man.
Fox show. I work for NBC, but yeah, I hear all kinds of good gossip over there. Fox is a mess, but like it's entertaining because you're like, I can't tell anybody this, but that's fantastic news. Like I know what's going on. So yeah, but I don't get to watch movies. I wish I had movies to recommend. I guess I could recommend 30 Days of Night since we were talking about Hold the Dark. It's another horror Alaskan film. It's pretty. I mean, I like it. I like Josh Hartnett. So.
Watch Into the Grizzly Inferno, but.
Oh, I've seen that too. I think.
You've seen. All right.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for this episode of the show. If you like this, you can find past recordings of it on the Groupthink Productions YouTube page. You can follow me on Twitter at antisocialcriti. That's critic without the C at the end of it. And you can find in some of my written reviews at Geeks Under Grace. I'm Tyler with the Fox Valley Film Critics. Have a wonderful day.